Hi, it's Michael, and welcome to week 7. We're moving right along. We're getting close to some really interesting new topics, but we want to finish off and really kind of hit home what we've been working on for all these weeks. And I do think it might be a little bit surprising to you all that we're still only at information. Now, what's been happening is, and maybe you can see that through some of the readings. I just want to explain that the goal here was down below. As we dealt with data, we wanted to understand it and to come up with some ideas about how to organize it at a higher level, which led us to patterns. And then information is, how do you navigate it and how do you find something in this large data set? So that's a human thing, right? So one might have been pattern and information at the lowest level. Creating HTML was really helping you be found by other computers, which is not trivial at all. In fact, it's probably the most valuable thing you might find in this class because people don't know that that's how you get SEO. There's that. And secondly, and we're trying to demonstrate this to a general audience. So you started with a sitemap, which can maybe be understood by someone who isn't well versed in this. Maybe not. The topics should be understood. The grouping should be understood. So if you have 100 things in a menu, that's something you want to learn soon because 100 things in a menu is hard to deal with it. You can't fit 100 things on a screen. So a lot of times you're doing work ahead of time to just kind of understand how to portion things out, so to speak. Like you're creating something, a banquet, and you want to make sure you've got the right recipes and you've got the right food for the right audience. I do tend to like metaphors around food, but so what are you doing? So last week you started with your first wireframe, and our goal here, or my goal, was certainly to start looking at these words. I'm really interested in the words and how do these words provide context. And so while I think it's terrific to have design, I know I'm suggesting using Figma, and a lot of that is actually just for, I think it's an easy to use tool. It also might help to type things out. If you're not familiar with it, the goal really is to just be able to repeat things, because when you started your HTML, you start to see it gets very, very repetitious very quickly. And that repetition can be a plus or a negative. So if you're understanding and feeling like you can change things later, oftentimes the complexity becomes so great you can never change your mind. That might be for more people in this industry. We want to make sure we're making the right decisions. So right now I wanted to make sure that I understood, how did you organize these? You're kind of showing perhaps a first level view, meaning there could be something chosen and something that's made this list happen. I might have poked at you guys a little bit because sort order is definitely a thing. Uh, Without it, Google wouldn't exist because they manage the sort order so well. And I think I've made that analogy more than once, but it is really important and made them a lot of money to know how to sort a list, especially based on search. Now, one thing that's clear, we're not using search. I understand that many of you have a location-based data set. That's fine. You can just say whatever location you're in is going to give you some context, but it doesn't give you all the context. So you're going to have some navigation take place. So this week, we're doing what's called a storyboard. And a storyboard for us is to just show a flow through this information and how the information changes. Especially one thing about this, you want to make sure that your data changes in a meaningful way. So you're telling a story about how does your choices on the taxonomy, which is the big overall groupings, the nouns, and your choices in verbs, which is navigation, how do you at a top level navigate to get to something close? Because oftentimes people don't know what they want. They want to explore. So you're going to show them exploration. You might show them filters, for example. You know you have some data that might be interesting to filter on. You can show what a filter does. Many of you have records that might have details. I think we looked at that tag in your HTML. Well, details are great. You can hide them, and show them on a click. So a flow for me through this, I believe if you look at the rubric, which you really should, and see what I'm grading on, I'm not going to reiterate all that because I try to be as clear as I can there. but I think it's like 5 to 7 states. And I'd like to start with, basically you've got maybe the place you started before. Here's a list. Maybe there's a first level sort. Maybe that's something like location, or you show how you get started. And then how do you navigate through the information using both verbs, meaning the top level or some sort of a major navigation, and then nouns, meaning secondary taxonomies and so forth. How do you use those things and demonstrate them by changing the data and the views in the storyboard? So it's a lot, and that's why we're going to start with just a little bit of a flow diagram. And this is a article that I really like, and I like this technique because it's pretty simple. It has to do with the user. What do you see? What do you do? And please read this before you get started. This is something you can do either in Mural or on a piece of paper to just get a kind of map out your flow of what are they going to see. And in this case, you want to be as detailed as possible. If you're going to show a menu of 27 things, you might not show all 27. You might just say a menu of filter by this, a menu of sort by this, something like that. Be as succinct as you can, and please use this format. Do not use another format, because the point of this is this format has a level of it cuts to the major goal rather than get worked up about boxes and arrows, and it could get a little bit noisy is the problem with some of these techniques. And this one is the least noisiest in my estimation. It just seems to get right at the point. And it's very easy to read. And the little line and the little dots are there on purpose. So please use this technique to give a thought about how, like here's a login flow. And you can see it gets pretty complicated. I'm not expecting this much depth into what's going to happen. I'd like to keep it at a high level just so that we make sure that when you start to draw these out, and it will be very repetitious, that you don't necessarily make a tactical error and have to start all over again. So you will be using this week to share, and thankfully we do have a lot of room, I hope. Yep, we got plenty of room. Make sure that they're the right size. We talked about that later. And the end of the week, you're going to turn this in. This is going to be your third assignment. And what it will consist of is probably all things, a link to Figma, which should have your sitemap. It should have this flow, and it should also have the storyboards in it in any way, shape, or form, just so I can find all of those things together. You're welcome to post that whenever you like as a link, because I won't be grading them till next Tuesday. So that's this week. And then, as I said, next week should be surprises. We're going to go up the pyramid really quick. So that's going to prepare you for the final paper, which is going to be due in 2.5 weeks or so. And that's going to be using all the things you've learned about how these words and taxonomies are used. How did somebody use that in a very, very popular service where you've got a couple of brand new ideas, which is that you don't get to control the information coming in, which is pretty amazing. You actually are going to get your content from someone. So anyway, we'll talk about more of that next week. Let's focus here. If anything is needed, please, of course, reach out to me and just mention me if you need feedback as soon as you've posted your flow. And so I can get you on your way. Thanks.